you so much, guys, for joining our second call. And I don't think I need to do introduction again concerning the program. We all know why we are here. So today we'll be learning about the use of English, specifically in the area of sentence, structuring your sentence, and passive and active voice. So we have a lecturer in our midst here, Miss Petra. So she will introduce herself and she will start the lectures. So, Miss Petra, thank you for joining, and we're waiting for you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wisdom. Good evening, everybody. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Who else can hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you. All right, good evening. Tonight we'll be talking on technical writing, sentence structure, use of English. If you want to be, how will I put it? If you want to write well as a technical writer, you don't just write haphazardly. You don't just cut and join words and then put it out for people to read. It has to follow some rules. Concord. I'm sure you've heard something like Concord before, right? Has anybody heard of anything like Concord before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
Yes, you don't say, oh, because I'm writing, what's it called? I'm writing maybe for engineering or medical intent, like you want to write for medical medical professionals or engineering professionals. Because of that, you no longer care about how you construct your sentences. So to do technical writing, you have to follow some rules. So today we are going to look at some of the steps that you're going to follow to produce a very clear piece of writing. So without wasting our time, let's go to our slides. Can you all see our slides?
Not yet.
No.
Yeah, so
Okay.
can we be responding in the chat to be much organized, please?
Okay, can you see the slides now?
Yeah, I can see the slide.
Yeah, we can.
Let's use the chat, please. Let's use the chat, please. So we'll go organize.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the parts of speech. You all know that before you can commence any writing, you need to use words, true or false, true. You need to use words before you can write anything at all. And then where do these words come from? They come from the parts of speech. When we talk about parts of speech, we don't just we just mean words. What do you even understand by parts of speech? Parts of speech are groups that you place words like according to the functions that they perform. We have the words that name things. We have the ones that describe the actions that you perform. We have the ones that describe. So each word that like their functions, we place them in a class, in a particular group. So that's what parts of speech means. So for you to do a good technical writing, you need to know where like the groups you're getting each word from. Let me take for an example. You want to write something, let's just say education. We have education, we have educate, we have educational, so you need to know where these words, the parts of speech they fall into and how to use them. You don't just use them haphazardly. You don't just okay, where you're supposed to use education, you now use educational. Or where you're supposed to use educate, you now use educate alike. So these are the things you need to watch out for in your technical writing. Now, in English language, we have what we call English for specific purposes. English for specific purposes are just English that relates to specific professions, like professions, occupations, or activities. You see, barbers, when you go to the barbing salon, the barbers they have their own how I put the jargons, terminologies that they use. They use things like clipper. I don't know some of the other terms. I'm not a guy, so I don't cut my hair. So when you go to the hospitals, they have their own language used. They talk about the surgical equipment, how like MRI and some other things, some of these other hospital languages. So the same thing applies to engineering. When you come to engineering or software development or whatever, they have things like product manager and how like back end, soft end. I'm sorry, like I know some words from all these engineering stuff, but I'm not. Eh? What did you
Front
say?
end. Front end.
Okay, front end and back end, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, front end
Full
and back
stack.
end. Yes, there's JavaScript, there's Python, there is, you name them. So these are some of the how will I put it, registers for the engineering field. So when you're doing technical writing for some of these professions, there are particular registers, vocabularies that you use. This is what we call English for specific purposes. Mr. Wisdom shared a document with me, an article with me on technical writing. And as I went through that, was a piece of article, I found out that some of the things there are, they relate to software engineering. So, and that is a very brilliant piece of technical writing. The same thing when you read some articles on medical practice, you see them talk about some of the things that relate to the medical field. That is technical writing in medical field. If you also get a literature book, some of the things you hear, you see Shakespeare, prose, some terms that relate to what literature and English language. That is what technical writing. So in the ESP, English for specific purposes, English is taught to suit the specific needs of diverse professions, occupations, or activities. Even the guy by the roadside that repairs your tire when your car tire spoils, they also have registers that pertain to their field. So that is what technical writing. So now we've hinted on some parts of speech, the nouns and naming words. Whatever it is you're writing about, you need to know the appropriate names, you don't just write in a way that people will be guessing. Is it this? Is it that? Everything has a name. You have to call things by their name. Whatever it is that you want to write about, you need to know their names. And then in technical writing, you need to use verbs that show action. We all know that verbs are action words. We know this, right? We know
Yes.
this much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, verbs are action words. So when you're doing technical writing, it's the verbs that show, the action words that communicate to your readers what you want them to see or what you want them to feel. So you choose the right words, strong verbs that will communicate your ideas and make your writing clearer. And then adjectives are descriptive words. Like when you talk about old, beautiful, handsome, but adjectives that pertain to your field. So you use these adjectives so that, adjectives have a way of, how will I put it, presenting a clearer picture. When you say somebody is old, haggard, dejected, it paints a kind of image in your listener's mind. That's the same thing it does technical writing. So whenever you're doing technical writing, you need to use your adjectives very well so that you can convey whatever it is you have in mind properly to your readers. And then we have the adverb. Adverb gives you more information about the adjective and about the verb, or even the fellow adverb. Like when you want to say he walks slowly. I'm sorry I'm using English terminologies. Like I said, I'm not an engineer, so I wouldn't know. I don't have much of engineering examples to give you. But then when you say he walks slowly, walks is already a verb. Walk is a verb. Now when you now say slowly is telling you the manner in which the man or boy walks. So you need to use your adverbs very well. And then pronouns. There's what we call pronoun antecedent. Like you've already mentioned something. Now maybe you say the computer is an electronic machine. And then you can't continue using the computer. You need to replace it with a pronoun. So whatever pronouns you're using should rhyme with the gender and the number. Let me give you an example. You say the computer is an electronic machine. When you now want to make another sentence, you don't say he stores data. Are we together?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yes, when you now want to say computer is an electronic machine, yes. When you now want to make the next sentence, you don't say he stores data. He is used for the masculine gender. She is for the feminine gender. You use it for something inanimate. That is pronoun antecedent. So when you're doing your technical writing, make sure that you use the correct pronouns to represent whatever it is you're writing about. And then we have the prepositions. Prepositions, they show relationship between a noun or pronoun and other words in a sentence. So you want to show relationship, like the bell is on the table. The bell is the noun, table is the object, like shows relationship between nouns and pronouns and other words in a sentence. And then, of course, conjunctions. So in technical writing, conjunctions are very important. I'm going to show you how important they are, like as we progress. Conjunctions are very important. Conjunctions are used to join words, phrases, or clauses together. So, in technical writing, you need to join a lot of sentences. You don't just, it's not really advisable to keep writing simple sentences. The computer is this, the computer is that. You need to vary your sentence length. So we are going to look at sentence structure later. So, and this is where conjunctions come in. You use conjunctions and transition elements to link your sentences together so that they can be coherent. Are we together?
Yes, yes.
Are we together?
Yes, we are.
About parts of speech. I'm assuming that we already we have an idea or background information about parts of speech. So I'm not really going to go into it, but do you have any questions at this level before we move to the next stage?
If you have a question, just let me know so that I can go ahead. So I don't want everybody to start asking at the same time. So just wait, let me know. Any questions so far? Just drop it in the chat, yes or no, then I can pick out the person.
Okay, all right.
Okay, none.
Let me progress now. Okay, now the next one, we're going to look at the sentence structure. In technical writing, everything just is sentences. You're going to communicate whatever it is you want to write in sentences. If it were possible, you could have used voice notes, but if it's something you're going to write, obviously you're going to put your ideas down using words and sentences. Now, what do you understand by a sentence? A sentence is a group of words. It has to make a complete meaning. A sentence is not something that you just listen and you're still wondering, is this thing complete? What are you trying to say? Like, a sentence has to be complete in its meaning, and then it has to be either a question, a statement, or a command. For example, if it's a question, it has to be something like, who invented computers? That's a question. It's complete. It makes a complete sense. Anybody that, even if somebody, like I just said, who invented computers? Anybody that is passing understands it, even if the person doesn't know the answer, but the person understands the question that I asked. The person understands that, this thing makes meaning. I want an answer. That is a sentence. Now, a statement, you don't say, something like, who invented computers? Please, engineers in the house, help me. Who invented computers? Hello?
That'll be a long question for today. You can continue.
I was thinking it's Blaze.
Pascal Blaze.
Pascal Blaze. So, okay, let's just assume it's Pascal Blaze. Because the internet might tell you Charles Babbage, I wouldn't know. So let's just say Pascal Blaze invented computers. That one is a statement on its own. It makes complete sense. It has a subject, it has a verb, and it has a subject and a predicate. So a sentence can either be a question, it can be a statement, or it can be a command. Something like stop. Anybody that's passing and you say stop, the person understands what it means. If you say get out, the person understands what it means. If you say the man is my father, the person understands. If you say, will you give me your pen? The person understands. It's complete in itself. It makes complete meaning. So that is a sentence. And when we talk about subject means the performer of an action, the person that performs the action in a sentence. That is what subject means. And then the predicate means from the verbal group, like the verb in the sentence, just from the verb to the object. Object is whoever it is that is, whoever, it could be a person or a thing that is receiving an action. Let me give you an example. You said, the man killed the cat. The man there is the performer of the action. He's the subject. The cat receives the action. So it's the object. So now we now say mastering the act of constructing refined sentences is essential to a good technical writing. So when you master how to construct refined sentences, I'm not talking about all these, there are some articles you read and it seems like this article is, you just be wondering, was this article written by someone in primary school or secondary? Like, it's not really refined. Maybe how they join the sentences and their transition elements and everything. It's not really coming together. So if you master the act of constructing refined sentences, like you will make your technical writing. Technical writing, it pertains to a particular field. So it's not everybody that knows what you're writing about. Like, take myself for an example. If I read an article that has to do with engineering, software development, and all of that, I may not really understand what it all means. But if the person that wrote it has a way with words, knows how to use words, combine sentence structures, use appropriate words from the different parts of speech and all of these things, I may be able to flow with that writing, even though it's not my field. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
Together.
All right. Okay. So knowing how to construct your sentences, it will help you to communicate your thoughts better. So now we've already defined what a sentence is: a group of words that makes complete meaning, and it has to be a question, a statement, or a command, and you have a subject and a predicate. I've already explained this much. Now, what is now the sentence structure? A sentence structure could now mean how you now arrange your sentences to follow the subject, the verb, the object. Like the example I gave earlier, the man killed the cat. The man is the subject, killed is the verb, the cat is the object. But some other people may change it to OVS, killed the cat, the man. I mean, it's still part of the sentence structures in English language. But this one, they use it, how will I put it, for maybe poetic effect or to have a kind of effect on the readers or listeners. Do you understand? But mostly we use the SVO, subject, verb, object. Now, another definition of sentence structures could mean any of the 4 types of sentences. We have 4 types of sentences. We have the simple sentence, we have the compound sentence, we have the complex sentence, and we have the compound complex sentences. Now, we are going to look at how you're going to use some of these sentence structures in your technical writing. It's not really advisable to use just simple sentences, or the computer is an electronic machine, the computer stores our data, the computer does this. I mean, it doesn't look refined. So I'm going to show you what each of these sentence structures, like how they are used, or rather what they mean, and then the right way to vary your sentences. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, like we already said, I already gave 2 definitions of sentence structure. Like, it could mean how you pattern your sentences to follow the SVO pattern, or SOV, or VSO, anyhow you want it to be. Or sentence structure also means the 4 types of sentences. We have the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex, and then the compound complex. Now, the simple sentences. A simple sentence contains an independent clause and presents one single idea. Simply put, a simple sentence, it just presents one idea. When you read or hear a simple sentence, only one meaning, one idea comes to mind. Let me give you an example. When you say something like, the computer stores our data, it just contains one idea. But if I say something like, the computer stores our data and maybe it does one other thing, it now has 2 ideas. Are we together?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
a simple sentence contains just one single idea. It just, when you read or listen to a simple sentence, it just presents one idea to whoever it is that is listening to it. So, and it is, a simple sentence contains an independent clause. Now, what do we mean by a clause? A clause is a group of words. Like, an independent clause is, we have clause, we have phrases. Clause is like a group of words that have that has a final verb, and then it could make a complete meaning or it could not make a complete meaning. That's a clause. A clause is like a group of words. You have it has to have a verb for it to be called a clause. And then it can make a complete meaning, or it may not make a complete meaning. Let me give you an example. If you say something like while he was cooking, it has a verb. While he was cooking is the verb there, like it's the verbal group there. But it doesn't make complete sense. It's a clause, but it doesn't make complete sense. While he was cooking. Because once you tell somebody while he was cooking, the person will not be like, what now happened? But if you say the bell rang, it makes complete sense. So the bell rang is a clause. It has a verb. The verb there is rang. It's a clause, but it's independent. It makes complete meaning on its own. But while he was cooking, it doesn't make complete meaning, even though it has a verb. But if you now join it together, while he was cooking, the bell rang. It now becomes an independent clause, a dependent clause, both of them join together to make one sentence. It becomes one sentence, but with two clauses. So a simple sentence just has one independent. You know what is independent? When you say I'm independent, it means you can stand on your own. You can take care of yourself. You don't need anybody. So a simple sentence contains an independent clause. It presents one idea. It means that sentence, it can stand on its own and make meaning. It doesn't need to be attached to anything for it to achieve a complete meaning. So now when a clause is independent, it makes a complete meaning and is a complete sentence on its own. When a clause is dependent, it does not make complete meaning and needs to be attached to like an independent clause to express a complete thought. Now, you can also call a dependent clause a subordinate clause. I already gave you an example. So examples of independent or simple sentences are when you say computer stores data. It just contains one idea. It ends in a full stop. You don't need to attach anything for it to achieve a complete meaning on all of that. You said the hard drive holds all of our data. It makes complete meaning on its own. You don't need to come and start attaching something for somebody to understand where you're trying to go. You say our CPU is constantly taking instructions. It's complete on its own. You don't need to add, anything at all for it to achieve its complete meaning. That is a simple sentence for you. Now, compound sentence. When you hear that something is compound, what do you understand by that? Just two. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please,
Yes.
Compound. When you hear that something is compound, it means that thing is two, double. Most times mean that the thing is double or it's two. So a compound sentence means joining two simple sentences together. And how do you join them? Remember I told you earlier that we are going to look at conjunctions, how you use conjunctions. So when you join two simple sentences together, you use coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions, we have and, we have but, we have or, we have nor, we have so, we have yet, and then some other word like maybe therefore and yeah. So compound sentence is when you join two simple sentences. So you can say computer stores our data and computer makes our work easier. Now, if you look at this now, it has two ideas. Remember what I said about simple sentence? A simple sentence does what? A simple sentence has one single idea, right? Now, compound sentences, we have two ideas and they are joined with coordinating conjunctions. So whenever you're doing your technical writing, you need to know how to use this conjunction. You see you read some articles and then when they're supposed to use coordinating conjunctions, they're using subordinating conjunctions. And the whole thing is not just coherent. Do you understand? The whole thing is not just coming together. Now, coordinating conjunctions are conjunctions you use to join sentences that have the same strength. Like once you separate them, both of them can stand on their own and make meaning. Like if you say the computer stores our data and computer makes our work easier. If you separate them, they can stand on their own and make complete sense. Are we together? If you separate them, you can have the computer stores our data, the computer makes our work easier. They can both stay on, like, if you remove the coordinating conjunctions, they can both retain their independence. So, but now a compound sentence, you join these two sentences together using a coordinating conjunctions. Another example is the hard drive holds all of our data and our CPU is constantly taking instructions. So we have two ideas, two sentences, two independent clauses, two simple sentences, but you join them with a coordinating conjunction. And the other one, we have computers communicate using machine language like binary. That is just one idea. You're just trying to talk about the language that computers use. But you now added another idea. But humans communicate using human languages like English. So what is the coordinating conjunction here? But. So these are two independent sentences that can otherwise stand on their own, but you join it together using what? A coordinating conjunction. So that's about compound sentences. So when you're doing your technical writing, you can use your simple sentences to introduce your topic sentences. I'm not saying that simple sentences are not okay. They are very much okay. But then you need to vary your sentence structures. It mustn't be, how will I put it? You mustn't use only simple sentences. It makes your work kind of repetitive. And at the same time, it's not advisable to use extremely long sentences, because if you use extremely long sentences, like you keep joining and joining, sometimes your readers, they lose track of what you're trying to say. They have to keep going back to read and reread and reread just to, find out what you're trying to say. So compound sentences are also good, like you could use them in your technical writing. And that brings us to the next one, the complex sentences. When you hear complex, what usually comes to your mind? Like, when you hear complex, like what normally comes to your mind when you hear complex? Just complex in itself.
Yeah, Gazier said many parts.
Many parts. Okay, many parts. Exactly. Thank you so much. So a complex sentence now exactly this one has many parts, if I have to put it that way. So a complex sentence contains one independent. One independent there means one simple sentence, and then two or more subordinate clauses. Remember, that means, simply put, it just contains one independent, one simple sentence, and then two other sentences that cannot stand on their own, two or more dependent. Remember the example I gave about while he was cooking, the bell rang. So it needs to have one simple sentence and then two or more other sentences that cannot stand on their own. So I wrote here that when a clause is dependent, it does not make complete meaning and needs to be attached to an independent clause to express a complete thought. A dependent clause is joined to an independent clause using subordinating conjunctions. So let me just explain this how you understand it. So a complex sentence, you need to have one simple sentence and then two or more other clauses that cannot stand on their own. And how do you join them to how do you join them to that independent, or you use subordinating conjunctions? You know what is subordinate? If like, I don't know if some of you like work in your offices, if somebody say, oh, he's my subordinate, it means something that is under, right? Somebody that is under or something that is under, that is subordinate. So when you hear about subordinate clauses, it means they are under another one that is independent. So let me give you an example. So some of these subordinating conjunctions are while, as if, because, unless. Let me give you an example. You say, unless you marry me. Okay, unless you buy me a car, I will not marry you. I'm just giving an example. Unless you buy me a car, I will not marry you. If you look at this sentence now, we have one simple sentence, and then we have one dependent clause. We have one independent clause. Independent means main. We have one dependent. So if you now decide to split it, one can stand on its own, the other cannot. So if you say, I will not marry you, makes sense. If anybody is passing and hears, I will not marry you, it makes sense. But if I just say, unless you buy me a car, somebody will be forced to ask me, what will happen? If I buy you a car, what will happen? So it doesn't make a complete sense. Are we together? So are we together?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now, so in this complex sentence now let's look at the example we have. Some mobile devices are general purpose computing devices. Like we're talking about mobile devices now, like your phones and your laptops. They are computing like your smartphones, while other mobile devices are optimized to perform. Like, I don't know if you can see my screen. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
It's already
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
it's there, Even though they are small, some mobile devices use peripherals such as Bluetooth headphones. So if it's unless just let me just give a if you say even though they are small, somebody will ask you, okay, what is small? And what will happen? So even though what is small, it doesn't make complete meaning on its own. So it's what? It's a subordinate or dependent. It needs to be attached to something to make it mean. But if you say some mobile devices use peripherals such as Bluetooth headphones, it makes sense on its own. So that one is independent. It stands on its own. It makes meaning on its own. But if you now say something like, unless they are within their safe operating temperature range, somebody will now ask you, what is within a safe operating temperature? What are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. That is the word dependent clause. And you now use unless. Unless is the subordinating conjunctions you're using to add it to the main. But if you say something like don't charge or discharge your rechargeable batteries because batteries can swell, rupture, and sometimes even catch fire, it makes sense to whoever it is that is listening to it. But if you say something like, unless they are within their safe operating temperature range, it doesn't make complete sense. The person will be, expecting more information. That is a complex sentence for you. So in a complex sentence, if you split it into parts, you need to have one independent. So in your technical writing, you need to also include complex sentences. Complex sentences, they help to relate ideas. They help to relate, show relationship. Like when you now say something that unless they are within their safe operating temperature range, it helps you to relate this idea to the next one. And then when you use complex sentences, and then you put you put the subordinate clause in front, automatically you're placing emphasis on the main clause at the end. So these are some of the things you need to watch out for in your technical writing, how to bring these things together so that you relate your ideas better. So after the complex sentences, we now have the compound complex. So in a compound complex sentence, it means you need to have two simple sentences. You need to have two simple, that is two independent clauses, and then at least one subordinate. So you need to have two that can stand on their own when you separate them, and one that can't stand on its own. So you now say, before the manager arrived, the engineers had already designed the product and the team had launched it. So if you now decide to split this sentence into parts, we now have the engineers had already designed the product. It makes sense on its own. If somebody is passing and you say, the engineers had already designed the product, the person understands what you mean. If you say the team had launched it, the person understands what you mean. But if you say before the manager arrived, somebody will be expecting you to provide more information because it doesn't make complete sense. So in this compound complex sentence, we have two independent clauses, that is two simple sentences, and one dependent clause that cannot stand on its own to make complete meaning. So as a technical writer, you know that whatever it is you're writing is peculiar to your field. If let's just assume that all of us are engineers and we are writing about coding or programming, it won't take a lot for us to understand whatever it is you're writing. But some other person out there that you want to be a partaker or participate in whatever it is you've written, you need to link your ideas, in a way that, they can flow with your writing, they can flow with you. If you use too much of simple sentences, it becomes repetitive. If you use too much of complex sentences, like, trying to do, or how will I put it, complex sentences and compound, like, there are some sentences you will see. I don't know if any of you have experienced, you see some sentences, 4 or 5 lines before you see the full stop. You keep reading a sentence, reading it, like just one sentence, many commas, like there will be many commas, many transition conjunctions, and then maybe 5 lines later before you see the full stop. What normally happens to me when I encounter such sentences, that I'll keep losing track of the main idea. I have to read the first clause, understand what it means, read it, because if you use too much of long or complex sentences, readers tend to lose track of what it is you're trying to say. So it's just necessary that you vary your sentence length. Okay, now we move to the next one: guidelines for successful technical writing. Know your intended audience. If you want to write for people that are at the university level, you know that there are some words you use for them, registers that you use for them. If you want to write for, how will I put it, experts or advanced, programmers, or how will I put it, senior experts, there's your intended audience. You know how to put your words so that it can, deliver the effect that you want it to have on them. Then you plan ahead. So while a simple sentence can be effective, hello, are we together?
Yes, we are.
Okay, while a simple sentence can be effective for presenting your topic sentence in a paragraph, using a varied sentence structure is better than having strings of simple sentences. This is to avoid repetitive patterns. I think I've said this over and over again. So you know what a topic sentence means? Like, sometimes it's usually the first sentence in a paragraph. When you're writing an article, you arrange your ideas in paragraphs, right? You know that much. Paragraphing. Each paragraph will contain an idea or something, a topic that you want to discuss about. So usually the first sentence in that paragraph is the topic sentence. So most times, a simple sentence is like, it's good to use it to introduce your topic sentence, but then in the course of your writing, try to vary your sentence structures. Are we together? Okay, now compound sentences join ideas that are related or have equal importance. Like I already said, compound sentences are just joining two simple sentences. Two simple sentences that you know that they are related, or even if they're not related, they're related, or even if you want to contrast them, they are still related. And then when you split them, hello? Hello? Is anybody saying anything?
Yeah, sorry, and triumphant or what? Yeah, just mute your mic here. She has mute her mic. All right, continue.
Okay. So compound sentences are used to join, ideas that are related or have equal importance. That when you split them, they can still make sense, like make meaning on their own. So do not overuse long sentences. This may cause your readers to lose track of the main ideas. You use clear words that are not ambiguous. Ambiguous means something that has double meaning. You don't want your readers to, when they're reading whatever it is that you've written, they will have a dictionary nearby. So whatever it is whatever words you're using, it has to be clear and unambiguous. You have to be brief too. Brief, include only relevant details. Do not try to bring even if you have to bring in, how will I put it, maybe some other things to explain whatever it is you mean. These days there's what they put this insert link. Maybe you get the website or wherever it is you want to do it, so that the person can just click and go and read up later. But don't include irrelevant things, so that they don't lose the main idea, focus of whatever it is you're trying to present to them. And use more of active voice. Active voice. In English, we have what we call voice. Voice in English language shows the subject. I already explained what the subject is. Subject is the person that is performing the action. Object is the receiver of the action. So voice is the form of verb that shows when a subject is the doer. Like, it shows if the subject is doing the action or receiving the action. Let me give you an example. If you say something like, I ate the food. I ate the food. The subject there is I, because I'm the one that is performing the action. So that means this sentence now is in the active voice, because the subject, which is myself, I'm the one performing the action. But if you say the food was eaten by whom? That means now, like, or you can say the food was eaten by me. Now the subject now is no longer in the subject position. Like, you've now changed the sentence structure. Like, the subject, like me myself that ate the food, it now seems like I'm the one receiving that action. So whenever you're doing your technical writing, use more of active voice. Do you know why? Because in technical writing, sometimes I need to fields like engineering and whatever, you will need to talk a lot about who invented what and who did what, or do you understand? So you need to use active voice so that your readers can know, okay, this is who is performing this action, this is who invented this is who did that, this is who. So because if you use passive voice, sometimes the agent mean the person that performed the action, or the person that initiated the action may be lost. You keep, it's just like, let me give you this popular, it's not really popular, like in my field English, we talk about agency a lot. Something like they say, oh, the soldiers shot the protesters. If they say, newspapers, most times they normally use the passive voice because they want to hide agency, people that perform the action. So instead of saying the soldiers shot the protesters, they will say the protesters were shot. Shot by whom? They are now using active voice to remove do you understand, the agents of the action. But sometimes it's advisable to use active voice so you can always, your readers know who or what is performing whatever action. So now active voice means that the subject performs the action expressed by the verb. In technical writing, it's advisable to use more of active voice. So your reader knows who does what, and then you're emphasizing the agent of that action. For example, I wrote something like Charles Babbage invented computers. If you look at it now, who performed the action? Charles Babbage. So you don't need to come and start. But if you say computers were invented, by whom? Do you understand? You leaves your reader wondering, okay, who invented it? Who did this? Who did that? Now you say, I designed the website. It gives you what? Like, you are claiming responsibility. I did this. But if you say the website was designed, it's in the passive voice. Nobody knows who performed the action. So if you're doing technical writing that you're using registers peculiar to your field and vocabularies and jargons, and then it's advisable to use less jargons, because obviously your writing is intended for people other than those in your immediate profession. So use less jargons. So and then use more active voice so that people can know who did what, when, and where. Okay, now passive voice. Passive voice shows that the subject receives the action depicted by the verb. So how do you form the passive voice? You just use the form of the verb to be. The verb to be, we have is, we have was, where, and then past participle. You already, like, past participle means like something we have eat, ate, and eating. Like, eat is just the normal verb. I eat food every day. Present. I ate the food last night. Past tense. She had eaten the food before I came. Past participle. Like swells, swollen, like past participle. So that's how you form the passive voice. So passive voice, instead of putting the subject in the subject position, you kind of change it in such a way that it seems that the subject is the one receiving the action. So passive voice is used to avoid repetition. You like to avoid repetition, trying to say, oh, Charles Babbage invented the computer, Charles Babbage did this. Sometimes you use it to avoid repetition. But where necessary, please use the active voice. So you use passive voice to avoid repetition, or when the actor of an action is not known. Maybe you don't know who performed an action. So you use passive voice. Or even when you want to hide the agent of the action, whoever it is that performs. So that's when you use the passive voice. Now look at the examples I gave. Computers were invented. If you say computers were invented, it's in the passive voice. the website was designed is in the passive voice. You've removed the agent or subject or actor, the person that performed that action. So for your technical writing, please use more of active voice and then passive voice where necessary. Okay, now this brings us to what concord. So whenever it is you're writing your technical writing, you need to make sure that there is agreement. You can't use a plural verb for a singular subject. I already explained what a subject it is. The person or thing that performs an action. So you can't say I'm looking for an example. Okay, the motherboard holds our computer together. You don't say the motherboard holds our computer together. The motherboard is one. We're talking about one motherboard. So it is one subject. You need to use also, it is one subject, a singular subject. So you need to use a singular verb too. I've read a lot of articles that, they kind of confuse this subject verb agreement, they flout the Concord rules and all of that. When I read things like that, sometimes I just shut down. I don't want to read any further because it kind of, maybe because I studied English language, the thing just kind of messes up my mood and everything. So whenever you're writing, whatever it is, even if you have to give somebody to maybe proofread it or edit it or something, please do that, because it also, how will I put it? It also convinces your audience that you know what you're doing. So make sure that the subject and the verb, they agree. If you're using a singular subject, please also use a singular verb. If you're using a plural subject, please use plural verbs. If you look at the second example I gave, the motherboard and RAM are components of the CPU. I can't say the motherboard and RAM is components of the CPU. It doesn't make sense. So this is not the rule of English. So make sure that subject, verb, they agree. Now we have the proximity concord. Proximity is, when you use the either or neither or no, and some of these other, how will I put it, correlatives and whatever. So when you use them, make sure that the verb you use also, it agrees with the subject. Look at the example I gave here. Either John or I am to be held responsible. If I were to maybe do a sample or take a poll and ask some of us what is supposed to be there, the verb we're supposed to use there, some of us may say is. Either John or I is to be blamed, is to be held responsible. But in proximity concord, the verb you're supposed to put supposed to tally with the noun or pronoun that is closest to that verb. Look at proximity concord. In a list of nouns or pronouns, the choice of verb is determined by the noun or pronoun closest to it. So either John or I am to be held responsible. So if you now read it in another way, it becomes I am to be held responsible. If you put is there, you can't say I is to be held responsible. It doesn't make sense. So in your technical writing, you have to observe these things. Maybe you're trying to compare either this or that, and then you use the appropriate verb. The verb you're using should agree with the noun or pronoun closest to it. Now, but if I were to change it and say either I or John, the verb there will be is to be blamed. Either I or John is to be held responsible. But then the right sentence structure is either John or I. You mentioned the third person first before the first person. Now the second example is the manager or the engineer is coming for the event. So the manager is just one. So you use is. Now we have the accompaniment concord. Like these I just selected some of the concords that I know that are problematic. So we have the accompaniment concord. So these are concords used to show that maybe something else is like an addition. So when you use something like alongside, together with, in collaboration with, including, as well as. So when you use these ones, the verb is determined by the subject that comes before this, like whatever verb you're going to use. When you want to say something like the computer as well as whatever. The verb you're using has to tally with the first thing that you mentioned. So if I say the computers as well as the mouse are, so I need to use are because I already said computer. Computers is plural, but if I say the computer as well as the mouse, I will use is. So that's the accompaniment concord for you. So whatever verb you're going to use should tally with the first noun or pronoun that you mention. So if you say the mouse together with the keyboard is spoiled, you just use mouse, one mouse. So you use is. The men as well as the engineer are at the side, the men. So even though you're adding engineers, do you understand? So these are some of the rules that you have to observe in your technical writing. And then we have the notional concord. Notional concord is, some of these collective nouns like depending on the meaning you have in your mind, do you understand? That will determine the verb that you choose. It's also the committee decides who stays. In some instances, you can use the committee decide. In another instances, you can use the committee decide. If you're talking about the committee and you're talking about the committee as individual people that make up the committee, you use the plural verb. If you're talking about the committee as a unit, you use the word singular verb. So something like the police, you say, the police are here. You don't say the police is here, unless you're saying the policeman is here. The police are here. The police is your friend because you're talking about the police now as a unit. And then we have punctuations. Yes, punctuation. This is very, very important. You see some sentences that just they have run-on lines. There's no punctuation, no commas, no full stop, no nothing. You don't even know where to stop reading. So you just read in your head, you're the one that is adding all the full stop and the punctuations for the writer. So you end every sentence with a full stop, question mark or exclamation mark as it fits. Then you capitalize the first letter of the first word in the sentence. Of course, you should capitalize people's names, days of the week, months of the year, public holidays, nationalities, languages, geographical locations, company names like Apple, Google, Microsoft. All these things, you capitalize them, religions, first letter of the content, like when you want to write a book, like the name of a book, comprehensive English, the C in comprehensive capital, the English capital. So these are some of the things, and then these are some of the things you look out for in your, in your technical writing. All right, so that's that about like some of the basic things you need to know about your technical writing. All right, thank you very much.
Whoa. Thank you so much for this particular call. It's very, 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 very informative. I've learned a lot, and I can say English is not my mate. And thank you everyone for joining. So this is QA section. So if you have a question, just put it in the chat that I have a question, then I'll call you so you can ask the question directly. Just put it in the chat that I have a question. Okay, yeah, I will share the chat. I'll share the slides. Where did I keep them? So
Please, do you have any questions?
yeah, like I know they're kind of
Reminds me, I just remember topic sentences. Okay.
so any questions so far? I know many people are kind of wondering how they will ask questions with this. It's we have so much to learn within an hour. It's really informative. So let's come with our questions, please. I know we learned one or two things, probably things we've been doing wrong. So let's just come with our questions. Okay, Ekemini. All right, let's go. Let's go with you first. So Ekemini, can go ahead with the question.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is on with regards to Concord, the one proximity Concord. So you said proximity Concord. It's the choice of the verb we use is determined by the noun closest to it. And one of the examples you gave was that the manager or the engineer is coming for the event. So the verb is there was determined by that engineer there. So let's take, for instance, hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so let's assume we had something like the manager or engineers. So is it safe to say we could use are there, like the manager or the engineers are coming for the event?
Yes. It's correct. In proximity concord, the verb that you like, the verb is determined by the noun or pronoun closest to that verb. So that it is done in such a way that when you split it, like remember the example I gave earlier, either John or I am to be held responsible. If you take that, like the last part of the sentence, like independently, becomes I am to be held responsible. Are we together? Do you understand me?
Yeah.
If you say the man or the engineers are coming later, if you take it separately, it becomes the engineers are coming later.
Okay.
Do you understand now?
Okay.
That's how you work.
Yes. Okay, then please, the second question was under a notional concord. I understood what you were explaining, but then I would like you to throw more light on one of the examples you gave. The first one, the committee decide who stay, and the second one, the committee meets every Thursday. So please, I'd like you to explain those two examples again, because it's a bit confusing for me.
Okay, notional concord, I have to read that this refers to agreement of verbs with collective nouns based on meaning rather than grammatical form. Like meaning means like what you like, the meaning you want to convey, rather than the grammatical form. Looking at like grammatical form means you are looking at whether it's singular or plural. Okay, the context. Okay, look at the second thing I wrote. The context determines if the verb will be singular or plural. So when I say the committee decide who stays, I'm talking about the individual people that make up that committee. Do you understand it now? Like, let's just say all of us here, like in this meeting now, we are like, it's just like saying the team. The team decide who plays. Like that means each of us, we have an opinion on who stays. So because of that, like since I'm taking that committee as the individual people that make up that committee, I use a plural verb, decide. But if I'm thinking about the committee as a unit, just one single unit, I now use decide. Oh, the committee decides. So it depends on the meaning you like. Do you understand the meaning, the context? That's, you know what is context? So context means like the situation, like the things that are happening, like maybe when you're making the. So assuming I have like this meeting now, maybe it's supposed to hold today, and we're all talking like, oh, the committee, we have to decide on if this meeting will go. That means I'm saying that each and every one of us in this committee, we have to give our opinion. Do you understand? So in that case, like committee here is now plural. Do you understand? Are you following me? Yes. But
yes, I understand.
Yes. If I'm just talking about committee as a unit, like just as a unit, that means it's just one. I'm just saying that's one unit. So I will not use a singular verb. It's just like saying the example that I already gave, please. He said, we make that mistake. The police is here. Police is already a collective now. So if you say police, the police are here. But if you want to say one police, say the policeman is here. If you say the police is your friend, you're talking about the police force as a team, like as a unit. So that's the notional, like, you know what is notion? The notion you have in mind, like the meaning. Do you understand? That the context will now determine whether you're using singular or plural. Is that clear at this point?
Okay. Yes, it's clear. Thank you very much.
Okay. Somebody asked the question, is there anything wrong with saying the work was done by me? No, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is what's it called? The work was done by me. This is a passive voice. Like this sentence is in passive voice. If you want to put it in active voice, it will be I did the work. If you say I did the work, you're emphasizing like yourself as the agent of the action. But if you say the work was done by me, this is now what? Passive. So, okay. You say, by the way, singular verbs takes S, while plural verb doesn't. Exactly. Habib, Makusota, yes. Singular verbs, they take S. I have this friend. Yeah, she's still my friend. She thinks because she thinks, how will I put it? I don't know, when she wants to say something like, oh, I like something, she'll say, I like this bag. I likes. I don't know why she does that, but then, the first person, I don't know, this is just, I don't know, first person, like I, use first person and then plurals, they use the plural verbs. Like when you say I, you don't say I loves you. You say I love you. It's just always assumed that the first person is plural. So, but then the second person, like he, she, it, you use like he loves her, she loves him. You use the singular verb. She decides who stays. He decides who goes. But if I'm talking about myself, I say I decide. You decide. They decide. Do you understand? So the singular in English language, the singular uses s. But the mistake that people do is because they think nouns. Nouns, to form the plural of nouns, you need to add x, right? If you want to form the plural of nouns, you add s, like bag, bags, shoe, shoes, plate, plates. They don't think it is the same way. Like that's the same thing that applies to verbs. That's not how it happens in verbs. Verbs is the opposite. The plural do not take s most of the time, and then the singular take s. So instead of saying, "Oh, he liked the bag," you now say he likes the bag, because that's just how it works. So somebody said, I'm thinking is the last part of the sentence. The committee decide who, being a single individual. We're talking about the collective noun, they are committee. All right. The committee decides every Thursday. Okay. I don't really understand the point you're trying to make. But then your examples are the committee decides every Thursday. That means you're talking about the committee as a unit. Depends on the context, the meaning that you, as the writer, you have in mind. So any other questions?
Any other question, guys, before we wrap it up? This is the use of English, so we need to bring our questions because technical writing is writing in English for this particular program. No, we can use other languages to write technical articles, but for this program is English. So, and I know I've learned a lot myself, like a whole lot, and I know many of you will have questions. But anyways, if you don't have any question now and you think you have later, I will create a form for that, for you to write, for you to add the questions, and for you to wait this call so that I can send the questions to her and probably send the answers down to you. So since we don't have any question for now, okay, Barry say, Petra, I really like how you ask if we are keeping up with you. Are we together? I'm going to adopt it. English is the business language of the world. Is it too late for me to talk about style guides now? I'm up for it if you are all that. Okay, Barry, it's a bit late here in my side. This is 9 p.m. and people are already tired. So maybe we can reschedule your call for that. Please, one more question. Okay, so Ekemini, I hope I'm pronouncing your name very well. All right, go ahead with your question. Thank you, Barry. Ekemini. Go ahead to your question.
Yeah. My name is Ekemini.
All right, go ahead.
Ekemini, I love your name. Okay, thank you. Okay, my question is this. The active and the passive voice. I observed that when the active voice, the subject, that's the doer of the action, comes first, and then the passive voice, the object, the receiver of the action, comes first. Now, is it possible for us to have a sentence where, let's assume, the verb comes before the object or the subject? Let me use one of the examples you gave. In passive voice, the website was designed by me. Is it possible to have something like designing of the website was done by me? Is that still a passive voice, or it's not proper to do that?
Yes. It's still a passive voice. It's still in the
So
passive
we can
voice.
do that if we want.
Yes. It's still in the passive voice. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so okay, one last call. Any other question before we wrap it up? Okay.
Byron, please, maybe I don't know. Could you reach out to me? Could you maybe explain? He said he's going to bring out a Google form. What you mean by style guides?
Okay. That's not directly to you more because she's one of our speakers. So
Okay.
yeah. All right. So we don't have. Do we have any other question?
I have a question, please.
Wow, I'm
Okay.
happy we have a guy.
Okay, my question. Sorry, I got caught up with stuff, so I joined halfway. But I had this question prior to the class. I'm not sure if you mentioned anything related to this. So I've had the opportunity to write some sort of, I say, guides, game guides, user guides. But one question still baffles me is that what is the right font to write in as a technical writer? Because I know different writing, they have different fonts, like the standard to write in and maybe the standard font size, a guideline in that regard.
Okay, thank you for that question. I can hear you. Hello.
Okay.
Okay. While I may not have maybe an accurate answer to that, I know that usually when you're doing any form of formal writing, you are usually advised to use maybe Arial or Times New Roman and font 12. But then, if it's, how will I put it? If a company like has awarded this contract to write this thing to you, I think it's safe you ask them the font that they want and then the style. Do you understand? So you don't just act on your own. Act on your own. How will I put it? On your own. I don't know if you understand. I think it's safe. Yes. I think it's safe to ask them. But I do know that in formal writings, sometimes like people are advised to use maybe Times New Roman, Arial, and maybe font block or thing, as the case may be. But it wouldn't be like wrong to ask them, please, like to get more information. Do you understand? So that you don't misrepresent their ideas and intention.
All right. Yeah. So add to that, we have our one of our speakers that can explain that more to you, which is Barry. She's here, but maybe she can reserve the question for her own session. So she'll be talking more about the style guide, writing style guide, where you talk about
Okay.
the guides you use in writing. Yeah, you have the Microsoft style guide, you have the Google style guide, we have the Apple style guide, and we have so many other style guides. So she will talk about those style guides and probably how to create your own style guides too. So reserve that question for her. Then that question more like for her, then she would answer that. All right, so thank you, Petra, so much, and please let's appreciate Petra because she took her time to teach us like kids. You know, she took us from elementary down to the highest level, and I can say for sure that, or for free, that I learned a lot. So thank you, Petra, once again. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everything. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for joining. And this call will be recorded or has been recorded, so I'll have to stop the recording now. Then, a few minutes from now, I would have to put it on our